welcome back to the LEC as Vitality breaks their losing streak by defeating Vedius here at LEC Spring 2022. I'm joined by their top laner, Alphari, who did play Camille today. Bit of a back and forth game, bit of a messy game, but you did win some huge team fights in the end. Bit of a cheeky ending. How are you feeling about the overall game that you played today?
I'm feeling fairly good because we had a comp that I thought it was like unlosable with at a certain point in the game, even though the game was like even, because I think that our champs just can do much more at a certain point. And I'm glad that even though we had hard early game, we were able to not just lose the game and still win. So, you know, I'm fine. It's a fine win.
Okay, sounds good. Because you did play Camille, and it's not a pick that we see as often in the top lane those days after he got nerfed a few times. But when I saw you pushing side lanes with Camille, I'm like, okay, so I can definitely see how the picks would work in this particular comp. Can you please give a bit more explanation on why you thought this comp was unlosable and how Camille played into this particular unlosable comp?
Camille just is a hyperscaler, and we have Rakan as well versus Thresh. And I mean, they have Thresh, Jarvan, Jezu, which are all strong champions, but they're supposed to be able to build like strong leads early game. And yeah, I think that basically they had limited options. Even though they had the Mountain Soul, they still couldn't play 3 lanes against us. We were still stronger on side lane despite this. So they had to always overgroup on 2 lanes. And it's not like we are weak in team fights either. If we ever find a good engage, we just win. So they kind of have to be desperate that they either 50-50 an objective, which we will get like flank fight, or they have to hope they get a pick. That's at least how I felt like the only win condition they could have when they can only play 2 lanes.
Okay, so Vitality definitely managed to play through the win condition today. After the game, when I saw the broadcast camera, like from the Vitality players, I saw a bit of a happiness, bit of relief, perks going around to immediately give some feedbacks to other players. How did the players react to today's victory, and what kind of feedbacks went through between last week's 0-2 defeat and this week?
So we decided to ban Zeri. Oh no, they banned Zeri. We didn't decide to ban Zeri. Don't like Rogue tomorrow. We're not going to ban Zeri. That was one thing. Zeri, we realized the champion is strong. And I think as well, I mean, we just, I think, are starting to lean more into our style. I think last week was not a good week. I mean, obviously we went 0-2. I can blame it on draft. I think we played pretty terrible as well, but I think draft is part of it. I think that everyone came in this week more focused and had like a good idea about our identity. So I think this really helped.
Okay, thank you so much for your insights and best of luck for the rest of the LEC.
Thank you.
Thank you. And now we'll have a closer look at G2's support Targamas and his amazing set.
Thank you so much, Ashley. Of course, it's time today to put a spotlight on one of the most promising new-ish talents in the LEC. We're going to put a spotlight today on G2 support, a player with the most unique champions played so far, none other than G2's Targamas. And while many of you might be seeing Targamas for the first split ever, this man actually has a hugely prolific history. He started in the LEC in 2018 on Giants. Playing his first split, it was a rocky one, but he got to play along names such as Steelback, Joko, Betsy, and while ultimately the split was not a super successful one, it feels like he had 1 or 2 moments. That said, at the end of the day, they opted to sub him out. And for many players, this would be the end of their EU-LCS careers. A single split, failing, not amounting to much. But for Targamas, it was just the beginning. Soon, he found success in the ERLs, reaching the semifinals at EU Masters with Fnatic and Rising in 2019, alongside Team BDS bot laner xMatty. And in 2021, he became part of the most dominant ERL lineup we've ever seen, Karman Corp. Reunited with xMatty in the bot lane and the top side of Adam, Syncroft, and Zaken, this French powerhouse won back-to-back EU Masters. Targamas then became one of the most sought-after supports during the previous offseason, and with G2 looking to rebuild, it became the next stop for him, alongside 8-time LEC champions, excuse me. Targamas, of course, is a player of incredible tenacity who did not let a single bad split deter him from pushing forward. He had massive success at the tier just below LEC, winning events in the UKLC, LFL, EU Masters, and more. He fought tooth and nail for another chance in the LEC, and no one can say that he didn't earn it. Alongside Flakked in the bot lane, he's shown a varied and explosive playstyle, playing a new support in every single game. There are only 2 questions that remain. Have I cursed him? And what's he going to play next?
So he's not going to be able to put any wards in this pit. A control ward is there. The sweeper from Targamas doesn't spot anyone out. TP coming in from Armor. Jankos goes forward. Targamas dives into the pit. Pulls them back with the showstopper. Armor already in the middle of the pit. Jankos trying to take him out. Armor's going to have to flash away. The shockwave lands on 2. Unforgiven's already got 1 kill, but it's answered as Rika falls as well. And Jankos, the healing is absurd. The needle after needle from Jankos just heals him up, and Unforgiven, Moonlight Vigil will not even kill off Flakked.
Whew, we got to see some of those insane Targamas mechanics, and Dracos beautifully broke down some of his history, and it was a great question that he asked. What support is he going to play next? Because so far, Targamas has not played either Leona or Nautilus, so those are some easy ones he could go for, but in terms of the out-there supports, it actually gets really hard because he's played a lot of them. We prepared this graphic, which will showcase some of the crazy champions that both Targamas and BrokenBlade have played, and he seems to have a lot at his disposal.
A lot. And as much as we've seen a lot of the same 2v2s kind of over and over at this point, G2 just have this unique chemistry, and that is just an absolute mess of everything. You can see how much variability, variety they have between everyone here.
Exactly that. I think that when we look at how Targamas and BrokenBlade bring so much diversity to the draft, it makes it that much harder to play against G2 because you never quite know exactly what they're going to be bringing out. I know that some were not as successful as others. We do look at the Zyra in particular, but I think that was more credit to Selfmade necessarily than the pick itself. But yeah, we brought in BrokenBlade as well because he also brings so much diversity and playstyle to the top side of the map.
And I have to quickly just correct something I said on the pre-show. I said, oh, BrokenBlade is the only player to play Yone in all of the major regions because Chovy played it this morning and completely bodied me. But the point still kind of stands. He's playing stuff which a lot of people would have to dig so deep for, and it doesn't seem like they're even being forced to do it. I think that's the really special thing about both of these players. They're not just reaching for these champions just because, woo, new stuff. It feels like it actually achieves what they want to in the draft in a way that no other team has managed to achieve so far.
Exactly that. I feel like that we're constantly seeing new adaptations in the draft, and like something that we spoke a lot about with G2 is that they have a core in Jankos and Caps, right?
Yes.
This duo, typically they're still sticking with their mages, they're still sticking with that high impact of the game jungler. We're still seeing that level of consistency from them, which kind of opens up for more creativity outside and sideline.
For me, it does feel like, I mean, that's where the spark ignition comes from, which allows so much extra room for the other lanes to work through, right? If you have to respond to what the mid jungle is doing, you don't have that same ability to shut down weird top laners, slightly off-meta supports and stuff like that. It's all working together in such a great cohesive fashion. It's what makes that giant G2 magic come to life.
Exactly that. And I think that while we do talk about the champions, that's not the only thing that makes these players strong, right? Targamas is an incredibly roam-heavy playstyle where he kind of leaves Flakked in isolation and works very well with Jankos. And then they bring a lot of those resources up towards the top side of the map for BrokenBlade to then hammer home.
And I think what was really surprising for me is that, you know, after Senna got bit gutted with the soul nerfs and stuff like that, I was thinking, oh, but G2 have been relying on the Senna more. They needed that for the cross map ult. No, they didn't need that. It was just something that they were playing. It's just another thing that they were playing. Everyone's just kind of, again, fitting in as smaller cogs into this larger machine, and it seems like they've really found the chemistry they needed.
Exactly that. Now listen, all I know is that if Targamas plays 18 different champions in 18 games, we unlock the mystery bonus chest. I don't know what's in the mystery bonus chest, but there's only one way to find out. Let's head into picks and bans for game 4.
I hope it's some Harmony Leap Stones, because I'm almost at eye level 600 in Lost Ark, and I just need some Leap Stones to get me there. It's really hard to collect them because I've done all the islands already, and it's really difficult to get all the Harmony. Maybe I'll do some Chaos Dungeons when I get home.
Am I the only one that doesn't play Lost Ark? It really feels like I am every time I browse Twitter.
You're too busy asking people to play Smash.
I do miss someone to play Smash, where Smash Bros is literally... screw it, we're not here for the Smash Bros. We're here about the game SK versus G2. And I gotta say, I've actually been looking forward to this game, despite the still skills to discrepancy we might see in these two teams. Because I actually believe that while G2 is very high on the ranking that we have in the standings, I don't actually think a lot of their games has been as convincing as they could have been. Now, I think they're very exciting to watch, and I do agree with what the desk is saying with all the different finicky picks. And speaking of that, I think we're just going to take it slowly,
we're going to go
but
slow?
surely into the champ select.
Very well done.
Thank you. It was hard building up. Maybe a bit too early. Jumped the gun a little bit.
That's hard, but you get there, you're learning.
Maybe tomorrow.
Maybe tomorrow. And after what was a slow and sure break, we are now into the champion select. SK on the blue side, G2 on the red. We've seen some rise today. We've seen quite a lot of it. In fact, it seems to be a strong pick for most of these teams. Twisted Fate once again banned out by SK. Even though he was nerfed and he fell in the win rates and he's not having as much of an impact, he is still very strong at getting around the map early on.
Well, especially when you're playing against a team like G2 who allocates a lot of their resources up towards the top side of the map. Having that Twisted Fate just means you take a bit away of the playmaking potential for BrokenBlade, which is something we've seen quite a bit. Ryze has risen in priority, and if you're not looking to play it yourself, we've seen him get picked up by second pick on the red side as well. Hecarim was a champion Kadriel talked about as well earlier in today's games, and he has risen in priority. We've seen it quite a bit in the LPL. Me personally, in the ERLs, it's showing up quite a bit as well, so I'm waiting to see its insurgence at the LEC, but a power pick that's gone through has been the Gwen, it has been the Jinx. It's a lot of these power picks, and in the ERLs, we see Jinx first picks all the time. I think it's only natural, though, that a response with the Gwen will come through from G2 Esports side.
Yeah, it could go for the Gwen, could of course go for the Xin-Jin combination that we saw quite a lot at the start of the season. We'll see where BrokenBlade and G2 decide to go. Aphelios, Thresh, very strong combo here if you want it.
Well, that's the thing, because you can decide to pick up the Thresh, you can wait for the support on 3 and just secure a good jungle for yourself here, but you're absolutely right. They do go for that Thresh immediately. Now, from the side of SK, you can still decide to go the Enchanter route if that's what you want to instead. Usually we see Jinx paired up with another likes of Lulu, Karma, something that helps get you the control of the lanes to let you play for other members. Now, Volibear has been picked up for Gilius, and this is going to be interesting because this is a jungler that is very much about facilitating lanes. And I gotta say, Gilius to me so far has been quite invisible in the early first clears of the game, so I'm curious to see how they'll manage the early game now that you actually have tools to play for in the Leona and in the Volibear.
Yeah, getting those two together, Treatz and Gilius teaming up is going to be a key to success here for SK. I will note, anyone keeping track at home, and Vedius and Nymaera, I'm sure, are very happy with themselves. 12th unique champion for Targamas. The Thresh, one of those picks he hasn't played yet. Jankos, though, has brought out the Jarvan so far. He has won both the games he's played on it, looking to make it lucky number 3.
Yeah, and Jarvan is one of those champions that you can blind pick with Thresh is up, because he will just flay your Flakked and drag, and it becomes a pretty difficult matchup. But when you've already secured that champion for yourself, securing it on 3 is perfectly reasonable, especially when you already have priority down towards the bot side where you can flay away the Leona with the Zenith Blade. You can find the pressure on an immobile AD carry like the Jinx.
And something else that Jarvan does really well is set up your lanes for success in the early game.
Exactly.
And because you have the Thresh Aphelios, it can be a very safe lane in the bottom side. G2 have all of the tools at their disposal. The draft suited perfectly for BrokenBlade to pick a carry once again and try and get ahead in that top lane. He's got red side 5, the last pick. He's got the counter pick. We'll see if G2 decide to give that to BrokenBlade.
We speak a lot about unique picks as well, but BrokenBlade has actually only played 2 champions twice.
Yep.
All the other ones has been unique. So the only 2 champions he's played twice, it's been Akali and it's been the Yone. So there's still a lot of flexibility to come through from G2. And this is actually interesting to me. It's looking way too standard. It's looking way too basic for G2. It's usually quite chaotic, but so far it's just looking like meta.
Just pike mid or something is what we want from Caps here. Something that can get around the map.
That's a World Championship Finals flashback that I'm not looking for, that I really don't like hearing about.
It worked against T1, okay? That was top lane.
Did not work against the Nautilus for doing B. I'm just saying that.
That is very true. G2 ban out the Akali and the LeBlanc from the mid lane. Tryndamere and Aurelia are taken away from BrokenBlade, 2 of those very strong power picks in the top lane, but we still have things like the Akshan, we still have the Corki if he wants to bring it out, although Corki perhaps not as strong since the 12.3 nerfs.
Something we could quite easily see G2 Esport go for here is just round out their composition with a control mage if they continue to go for something standard, because it's something that just creates space around your Aphelios that allows you to play for it, and at the same time it's allowing you to have counter pick for BrokenBlade, which we quite often see G2 try and facilitate. So far this is just quite standard for G2 Esports. It's quite quite unusual.
Yep, I mean, we'll see what the final pick is. Graves and Orianna locked in for SK with the Tryndamere ban, a common pick into the Graves, at least outside of the LEC. In the LCK and the LPL, we're seeing that quite a lot. G2 here will have to find a way to deal with that pseudo-marksman in the top lane. Gwen worked her way all the way through picks and bans, does give you carry potential in the top lane, although not as powerful in the pure 1v1 as something like an Akshan early on.
Now, I've seen this matchup between the Gwen and the Graves quite a lot of times, and I've seen it be picked by both sides as a counter pick into it. The way it usually goes is that Jenax on the Graves should still be able to control the first 3 waves, but you are definitely getting outscaled on side, and if you make one mistake, one wrong move, and you get caught up by the snips and the needlework, well, you will just die to the Gwen. So it's actually just pretty cookie-cut clear from both teams here what they're going for. It's a team come from to back that you're looking for. You got weak side for Jenax up towards the top side. SK, they want to play for that Jinx down towards the bottom side. You want to contest the mid lane pressure, move Gilius down there. You have the dive potential, and you need to make something work for SK in the early game because we just rarely see that. It looks like if SK can finally just get one winning lane, maybe they'll have the momentum to move into the mid to late game because quite often they are decent at stalling out the games.
Yeah, their mid games and their late games have been strong. Their team fights have been relatively good throughout Spring, but the early game, every lane tends to fall behind. G2, on the other hand, BrokenBlade has consistently got leads in the early game. Jankos has been all over the map, and Flakked plays weak side quite a lot, but Targamas is someone you have to watch. His ability to roam around the map can really impact the game. SK versus G2 up next. And let's get right on into it. 12 games for both these teams. This will mark the 2/3 of the way through the split position, and G2 perhaps in a stronger position than a lot of people thought they would be at the start of the season. Most people saying downgrades across the board, although Wonder and Reckless didn't have their most standout performances in 2021. They still had a storied history behind them. G2, though, looking to keep the ball rolling. Targamas, the first to step forward into this bottom side jungle, will just get a ward down on the red. Sertuss spotted him, which means Jezu weren't able to get an invade. BrokenBlade places a ward at their own red, just in case Gilius was looking for something feisty.
Yeah, Gilius did recall there. I think he picked up a sweeper. No, he actually sold that immediately because it's Treatz who's going to be picking up the sweeper instead, so he'll have that available. What they can do here, if they're fast, they can have Treatz get the ward from the sweeper, let Sertuss be there for the clear as well, and he'll reach level 2 on the first wave. It's not going to be something that wins you the game, but it is a factor when moving into talking about wave priority in the mid lane.
And you can see how far Caps is pushed up in the mid lane as well, trying to catch that wave, maybe draw its aggro so that the wave, these first few minions, focus that one minion down, meaning that minion might die a little bit quicker. However, Sertuss is going to be here in time. He didn't get the ward, it went over to Treatz, so Treatz actually gets the XP for them.
But it's interesting to see Gilius path up towards the top side, because usually with the Graves, it is quite just a weak side pick that you let be for itself, let it dictate the wave state, get an early clean in, get a Shovel 3 recall for a little cheater recall to get an advantage in the items, and then you just kind of let that be. But Gilius is going to be pathing up towards the top side of that immediately, which means G2, they get to have bot lane priority because their bot lane did not leash Gilius, and with that, they're taking control of their early side of the ward, map rather, with Jankos pathing down.
Would have been quite impressive for Flakked and Targamas to leash for Gilius, but I do understand the idea that they didn't leash for their own jungler, and Targamas and Flakked about a minion, maybe 2 minions ahead as this wave clears. You can see Treatz and Jezu just respecting that fact. I will come back a little bit to the oracles on the support idea. Often you see junglers pick up the oracles to sweep out the first ward, but if your jungler wants to gank bottom, it it is actually better to have your oracles on your support because they can clear vision before the jungler gets there. Meaning the jungler coming in isn't spotted when he tries to get the gank.
It's not only that, it's also just the, oh, I think your jungler might be down here now when he's not in around the area and there's no vision control here. But wave will most likely be crashed by 3 here by the G2 bot lane. This can allow Targamas to go for a favorable back for himself to get a call in the early game if that's what he likes. It enabled Targamas to move around on the map if that's what he's going for. And all in all, you just get control of the waves.
You can see it shoved in. About a 10 CS lead. There are 4 minions there, so that we even out to about a whole wave of the first 3 there for G2. At bottom lane, you can see Targamas using his body a little bit as a ward there, just sweeping around, making sure there's nothing to be found. SK bottom lane will just grab it. This Scuttle Crab secured. Jankos won't have to use, well, I was gonna say he doesn't have to use EQ. He can save that cooldown if he wants because the shield was already broken by Targamas, but he's still able to secure that Rift Scuttle. Lickety Split didn't have to use his smite on it, meaning that he now has the smite for the blue buff.
And now the Gilius, or now the SK bot lane as well will need some help because they're now having a slow push being pushed into the G2 bot side. Flakked has just shot and is at an item advantage, and Jankos can potentially move down there himself if that's what he's looking for to just allow his bot lane to set up a freeze. But it looks like the wave is going to be too big. Jankos is going to go for a reset himself, and the SK bot lane should be able to respond with a push in themselves.
No oracles available for Treatz though, so can't clear out the ward that has just fallen. Didn't even need to clear it out, and as you say, they will just back away. Just a little bit of back and forth, you know, the pendulum of League of Legends that you called it the last time we cast together. Still, don't think you've listened to enough of their music, but apparently it's just
I did listen to more
to you.
after it. I made a Call of Duty montage for you as well after listening to Pendulum.
It was a great montage.
Yeah, and I thank you so much for the voiceover as well. It's brilliant.
That's what I'm here for. But in the mid lane, Sertuss has actually already had to expend his teleport. Went back, got himself a tier of the Goddess. Caps, though, has about an 11 CS lead with 3 extra CS to pick up here. So a sizable lead there for the G2 mid laner early on.
But now they're also moving around Viva for control here, and actually Treatz and Gilius, they are walking around as a unit. Not something we've seen too much of. SK trying to make moves in the early game, but a lot of the river is just still naturally in control of G2 just due to the fact that they took the Scuttle Crab and they do have a vision around this bush.
And Scuttle Crab will fall off relatively soon, but that does just give the G2 bottom lane a little bit more protection. I want to come back to that point about Gilius and Treatz teaming up because it isn't something we've seen too much in the early game. And in fact, Gilius last week really struggled to have an impact in the early game. You can see 0 kills and assists at the 14-minute mark. Very low jungle proximity. That's the amount of time he spends near his laners between the 2-minute and the 14-minute mark. Usually, on heavy ganking junglers, you're looking up around 50%. At 33%, it's not that much, but maybe he's trying to turn it around. Lancer goes down, the root comes out with the flame chopper. Flakked's going to have to flash away, but the flash chase is there. Flakked gets the double root, but Jezu just needs one more auto. Treatz, I think, wanted to auto the ward, instead steals the kill, but it's still first blood to SK.
Yeah, and that's exactly what we want to see for Gilius, because the stats you did bring up, you're completely right, Medic. For the longest time, it's not just Gilius. SK has just been a disjointed team.
Sertuss, you got to flash. You don't have to flash, apparently. Summonary, not quite enough to kill him. The Chaos Storm just short. Caps is able to force Sertuss out, and that's an item disadvantage as well, remember. Hasn't TP'd back to the lane.
But to go back to my point, SK as a team has just been disjointed. It's not the fact that Gilius is not having anyone to play around, it's the fact that no one communicates a play. And this time around, it's set up beautifully, because when the wave comes bouncing back into SK, they freeze it right outside of the turret, meaning that G2, they need help to break this fleece. Jankos, he's not in position to actually go for it. Gilius, he's on a pink board, ready to capitalize on it. And quite honestly, Treatz just find a brilliant Zenith Blade on towards Flakked. It's not something we usually see from SK. Usually all their lanes are at a deficit, except Jenax, who's usually playing weak side. So for them to finally get a spear, a point of attack in their composition, might put them in a more favorable position, because remember, SK quite often, they make it hard for their opponent to close out the game. They make it hard for them in the mid to late game, but the early game has always been their issues.
They're always doing it at a deficit. They're fighting back from behind here. They have a lead in the bottom lane, not in terms of gold, not in terms of objectives, because the first dragon of the game was secured by G2, but now Flakked has no summoners, and that makes it very difficult for him to escape. There was a small interaction in that last play as well, where Treatz got the stun. Jezu put the Flame Chompers behind Flakked. That meant the Clans into Lantern actually still caught him on the Flame Chompers. Nice little bit of play there by the SK bottom lane. A bit of coordination from them to make sure that even if Flakked used that cleanse, he wasn't going to be able to get away with that Lantern.
And with this, resets are coming through from both junglers. Remember, Jankos started up towards the top side, was gonna path down bot side. Gilius started bot, was gonna path top, but he can still go for bot plays here. The thing is, they're having a waves collapsing down towards the bottom side. He can try and hover if that's what he wants to, allow his bot lane to push it in. Then while G2 is dealing with the bigger wave, he can clear the top side and then come back again bot for the shove, which is just what we saw before. The what if and what if and what if that makes sense.
Yeah, that's the thing. Is there's so many layers of like, you could do this, you could do this, you could look for this, you could get a million chakrams and just clear out the way pretty quickly.
But that's actually brilliant by G2 because they read the play that can be set up. If they suddenly are in a position where they have to slow push towards them and they don't have flashes on towards Flakked, that's a really bad position because that means the rest of G2 is going to have to play bandage on that.
And the question always is in this sort of play, can you, as the shockwave comes down, Treatz on the way, not yet level 6, does have the flash. Jankos will flash away towards the top side. So got a little bit of play there by SK to get control, rotating over. You can actually see, I think G2 are giving this one up. Flakked's gone down towards bottom lane, doesn't want this fight.
They're still staying around for it. Jankos, he does have that Cataclysm. Remember, no flash though, so if one member gets caught off guard...
Treatz going in, there's the stun onto Caps. Rift Herald, they don't want it to reset, so they'll go back to the eye. Mid lane prio gained by G2, but it cost them this Rift Herald as Gilius will pick it up.
And honestly, I'm just curious to see G2 try and apply pressure there. You know you're walking into a 4 versus 5 situation. You know BrokenBlade is pushing the top side. It seems like a bit of a Hail Mary play.
Caps just kills him here. Chaos Storm, Sertuss flashes it. Just gets away. Flashback off cooldown off that initial play. But look at this, Sertuss has no health. Has no real way of surviving this. Meanwhile, in the bottom lane, Flakked with great guns is going to take 3 plates solo. Super Mega Death Rocket, not enough to kill off Caps. And the Rift Herald play, even though G2 fought it, they kept SK wanting. They kept SK trying to make the fight happen. Flakked gets 3 plates. Now Jenax is going to be forced off this way by G2 playing the bottom side, and it's so good for G2.
It actually is, and you're completely right. The fact that Sertuss has been forced out, the fact that his TP is not leech means he can't go forward. Jenax though moving forward.
Goes in, there's the play back. Jenax doesn't have flashes. Ghost teleport Graves, and he's going to one now. Gifted kill over to Flakked. Secured in the end. 3 plates, a kill to boot. Top lane tower will fall. That will be given over to Treatz, Jezu, and I think Gilius got some of the gold as well. But this, across the board, G2 have actually answered very well to the Rift Herald play and to that initial fight in the bottom lane.
It's actually quite crucial the Rift Herald goes down as well because it allows yourself as G2 to not worry about your second tier turret being taken. Once Shelly gets that turret real low. Thank you, I'm here, everyone.
That's good, that's good.
And it's actually very interesting to see that also the counter pick that came in from the mid lane from Sertuss with the Orianna, they already knew he was picking it into Viktor, but he's really been struggling against Caps. Caps been doing a great job at taking control, playing around the laser, playing around the movement from the ball, and just out-sustain Sertuss, or out-trade Sertuss rather, in these exchanges.
Part of that is the safety that having Targamas around definitely provides, and Targamas having a stellar split so far. Probably one of the best newcomers to the league. Of course, he did play on Giants in 2018, but this is his return to the LEC. High jungle proximity, low duo proximity. That means he doesn't spend much time near his AD carry in the early game, and we saw an indicative moment of that where Flakked was by himself in the bottom lane getting all those plates himself, and Targamas was up trying to team up with with Jankos and with Caps for a play in the mid lane.
And this has been the Targamas style for God knows how long, from his back-to-back championship victories at European Masters with K-Corp. This has always been his style. You leave your AD carry alone. Matty was the AD carry back then, and then Targamas is out on the map. And that's why I also think that the combination of him with Flakked is actually a really intelligent combination of a bot lane together, because that was Flakked's style as well in the LVP. He was the kind of AD carry that was just getting few resources in the early game. His laning stats weren't the best, but he had the highest damage percentage of all the LVP supports. So you can imagine that this is a guy that pairs up nicely with Targamas.
All of G2 are here. All 5 players are in this bot side river. Treatz is going to try and survive, but there's not much he can do. Targamas flashes away. The Ignite is ticking, won't be enough. BrokenBlade joins the fray, stunned immediately and forced away. SK on the other sides of the map, looking for plates in mid, looking just for a push in the top lane because that tower's already down.
And just like that, they should be able to move one man into the mid lane, respond to the play that Sertuss is committing while they're getting the Drake for themselves. Jenax on the top side, he's going to be pushing in a wave, but I think BrokenBlade, he's going to be recalling in time to not miss too much. It is a cannon wave, so he's going to be missing 1 melee, and then the turret's going to start targeting the cannon, and he's still going to be able to pick up the rest of the farm.
Good play. I think G2 expected a little bit more out of it. We're hoping for another kill. Gilius read it okay. Was able to only sacrifice Treatz on the day but the rest of the map not really going in SK's favor so far. They do have about a 400 gold lead, but 2 kills on that Aphelios. Flakked, I would wonder, actually, observers, if we can have a look at the gold, I think he is probably 1,000 gold ahead right now, or thereabouts, if we have an opportunity to switch over to that at some point. I do understand sometimes there are things more urgent than looking at gold. It's just one of those things that tickles me a little bit.
Yeah, sure. For Jezu and Flakked as well, they're going to be responding to waves being pushed in here. And I want to take a look at how they're allocating the resources of the map here, the way that G2 are going to be moving into pieces. Because I actually thought they were going to move their members up towards the top side on the stack wave that was being pushed in there. But Targamas, he's just going to be shattering caps in the mid lane, while Jankos, he's taking care of his red side. And once that is done, that gives you time on the map. That allows you to play for anything you want. But it seems like they're just going to be going for resets.
There we are. 700 gold, the lead for Flakked. So it was about 1,000. My math's not as bad as I thought it was. But, for the moment, he's in such a strong position. Mid lane relatively even, although Caps has had the upper hand in that matchup. Treatz getting the first kill and plates. This is the reason that the Treatz is so far ahead, is he's shared plates with Jezu when they were taking down that top lane tower. It's the reason that Jezu isn't as even on gold with Flakked as he could be.
And this is actually more competitive than you would think coming into this game as well, specifically because the SK laners has been shut down so often. And I mean, Jezu and Treatz, I'll be honest, they've been having a rough time down towards that bot lane, not just in terms of how they played out of the lane, but also just in terms of how they 2v2 it. This time around, when they finally got their resources, they're not specifically on even footing, because Flakked did get all those plating for himself and those kills, but they're remaining competitive.
Jankos going forward, stunned up. Should be able to escape. TP used in the mid lane by Sertuss. And even if you look past the playstyles of the team and the general sense of who will win the game, you just look at the standings. These guys are opposites. 8-3 to 3-8, and Caps now stunned up. The gravity field will come down, but Jezu should be able to chase this one out. Another kill coming out. And it's SK now who have the upper hand.
And let's talk about who he's coming from. Once again, it's Gilius. We saw the stats just before. 0 kill participation at 14 minutes. This time around, granted, it's only 2 kills, but all the plays have been with him involved. So all of a sudden, you had a jungler last week who struggled to translate anything together with his team, and they've already fixed those issues to now being in a position where you're playing for Jezu, where you're having a win condition, where you're having a favorable position, or maybe not favorable, Jenax though.
Pops the ghost early on. Jankos has the cataclysm. Oh, mistimes it slightly. Jenax there able to quick draw out, puts the smoke screen back down. The rest of SK are on their way. Treatz looking for a flank. There's a blast cone there. Flakked will take it. Solar Flare only gets the slow onto Targamas, but Jezu's on the chase. Targamas is not in the best of shapes. Not sure the cleanse was needed, but Jezu does it for safety as the TP comes into the mid lane by Caps.
And once again, great movement from SK. They get the pick bot lane, they shove it in, they move up towards the top side because they know Rift Herald is going to be respawning. And then G2, they're looking for a dive, but the reset's already come through from SK, and they're ready to punish what that gains them a Rift Herald.
SK playing both the individual mechanics and the macro very well so far. 15 minutes into the game, they get their first neutral, second neutral objective. It's another Herald. They'll probably use that to try and crack open this mid tower. Caps went from mid to the bottom lane and continues just to farm away. 151 CS, and although his scoreline betrays him a little bit with a 0-1-1, he is having a very strong game so far.
Let's have a look at it once again. Jenax, very much weak. Very much used to being the weak sider, rather, and he reads the play beautifully here. And then once we talked about it, SK, they're out of the resets, they're ready for the move. As soon as Blastcone gets taken here and Targamas is caught in position where he doesn't really see the rest of SK, he is just screwed. He does not have that flash, and that means the play is over for G2.
And now we wonder if G2 will be able to set up around this dragon, because they have been stacking them. 2 so far in the game. We saw constantly they were playing for this bot side, playing to get these dragons, but the third one, often the point where the tides turn a little bit. Teams very willing to give up the first 2 Drakes, get Heralds set up towards that top side, get plates into their AD carry, and now SK only 500 gold ahead, but an item and a half, I think, already on this Jinx. A whole breaker complete on Jenax. It does give you a little bit of a help in a team fight, even if it's not the most team fight coordinated item.
And remember, now that they're getting far ahead as well with the Volibear, with the Leona, like, you have points of attack as this SK composition. You have ways of continuously trying to develop your gold lead. BrokenBlade, though, on the Gwen, is going to continue to play nuisance. And I think they're just going to be giving up this third Drake for themselves. They picked up the first 2, which allowed themselves to not worry about SK getting close to a soul point. And with this extra time, they're probably just going to be picking up a tier 2 turret in the trade.
And Nash is going to do a lot of work. TP very late. Snip, 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 snip. The tower does fall, but the TP does find its mark. As BrokenBlade was able to take out the tier 2, but Jenax able to stop him from pushing up any further.
And that TP really doesn't gain you much. The turret goes down anyway. It's not like BrokenBlade was going to threat the inhibitor turret either way, so that's just a little bit of a wasted TP from Jenax there. And with that G2, they can take control of the bot side of the map. They have Flakked in the mid lane pushing in a wave. They have Caps down towards the bot side, and then Targamas and Jankos are going to be trying looking for play.
Solar Flare first to make sure you get the stun. Targamas had flash, but he finds a flash a little too late. Jankos goes in with a Cataclysm, but there's just no response. BrokenBlade with the latest TP we've seen in a long while, and BrokenBlade very lucky that Gwen's immune. She's got her boosters as she manages to slip and slide her way out of the fight. Stormbringer going in. BrokenBlade down towards the bottom side. Gravity Well doesn't get the stun. Caps now chased off by Sertuss and Gilius. No shockwave, but a flash to get Caps to safety.
Yeah, but that's a flash down for the next skirmish. And SK, they catch G2 in uncoordinated positions. I was talking about how G2 was getting the priority, but they did not have to ward around the Raptor. Jankos, he was waiting around the bush at red buff and was not in a position to back up Targamas when the fight finally broke out. And just like that, SK, they keep gaining themselves ways to stay in this game.
Only 300 gold behind now, SK. Looking at only their 4th win in the LEC Spring. Of course, it's a long, long way away. They have to keep this momentum going, and G2 have to keep making a few uncharacteristic blunders. BrokenBlade TPing in late, Targamas getting caught with the Solar Flare when he had flash. Just a few mistakes being made so far by G2 that we haven't really seen from them. Although their games haven't been as clean as an 8-3 scoreline would suggest, they haven't been miscoordinated to this degree.
I honestly would disagree a little bit respectfully, because I actually think...
You can disagree unrespectfully.
I know.
Tell me why I'm wrong, Guldborg.
That's a nice little game show we can have for later, but I actually think G2 is making a few mistakes like this where they are looking a little bit uncoordinated. I think if you take a look at their game they had against Mad Lions, I think that was more Mad Lions that lost that game, that it was really G2 who found a way back into it just because of the throw that came around at the Baron. And it seems like G2, despite their wins, has been a little reliant on punishing their opponents when they're making the mistake. Bear in mind though, G2, they're really good for the mental team in terms of then finally finding that punish. But sometimes, when they are having these setups, they are getting picked apart a little bit.
Hoping for a mistake then, RG2, as SK continue just to farm up. Rapid fire cannon, second on Jezu here. And not too much armor being built on the side of G2, so no need for an immediate Lord Doms. You can see that is where Flakked went with his second item. Into the Turbo Chem Tank. Can do a little bit of work, but once again, not too much armor. In fact, even Treatz going Anathema's Chains Mercury Treads here for the Magic Assist and for that damage reduction. 30% damage reduction when it's charged up is a huge deal, especially when you're running something like a Glacial Leona, because you are a lot squishier than you might have been if you were running Aftershock.
Yeah, quite often when there's only one AP damage dealer, you just put the Anathema's Chain on that person, then you can only worry about building tank against the armor or against the attacks damage. But now that there are 2 AP members in BrokenBlade and in Caps, I think Flakked has just been the target of that Anathema, and then he can just build Magic Resist only to worry about Caps and then BrokenBlade.
Makes the most sense. Did rise into prominence on a supports when we had a lot of AD top laners and even AD mids with like AP bot laners. You just wanted that single target of damage removed from the game pretty much, and gives Treatz a little bit more freedom when he is looking for these engages. 1 minute though on the 4th dragon of the game. Would be 3 for G2 if they can secure it. Would be the 2nd for SK. They continue to scale into this game, but so are G2. Caps has an item and a half, almost 2. 2 items on Flakked, as we said. BrokenBlade with the Rift Maker Nash's Tooth combination can absolutely shred through anyone that stands in his way.
1 minute for the soul point, or what would be soul point for G2 if they manage to pick up that Hex Drake. And so far, they have still been the team to allocate their vision first. They have still been the team to push in the waves and apply pressure to SK, with SK then looking for a response. But something SK has been very good at doing is catching G2 off guard at these setup moments. And now Treatz finally going to be moving around the river, trying to get rid of the vision that G2 has set up and trying to apply some vision himself.
Also wondering what Flakked's next gun is here. He's got Calibrum Gravitum. Now, Gravitum very good for starting off a fight. Of course, Moonlight Vigil Gravitum, you can get a multi-man route, but Calibrum, not always the best in terms of these team fights. Infernum, Crescendum, we did just see him cycle through that. I wonder if now he'll try and get a few of these shots down. He's got 12 left on the Calibrum, but instead keeping them for the moment. Couldn't quite get rid of that ammo on the wave. Maybe even will look to trade it in the middle of the fight. Use the range to start it off, and then now here's the Infernum. Gravitum available. Good guns for Flakked. A lot of AoE damage.
Definitely need to keep Jezu peeled here as well. He's the main source of damage. Look for that shockwave as well for Sertuss. But if G2 can blow up a target, they can surely take the fight.
Watch that ball. Can be the ball of death. Pushes forward. Hook goes down. Gilius smites it. Solar Flare onto BrokenBlade. Not really the target you wanted. He's immune. The shockwave though finds 2. Infernum does nothing against the Rocket Man that is Jezu. He shreds through them. An artillery unto himself. An army unto himself. A triple for Jezu. The shockwave mega death rocket combo.
Beautiful team fight composition coming out there from SK, the way they're piloting it. And Sertuss, he's been invisible the entire game, but he finds a killer shockwaves paired up with Jezu's rocket. It gets them the Drake, it gets Jezu a triple kill, and it should allow for SK to pick up a Baron.
Sertuss and shockwaves, name a better combination. I'll wait against Mad Lions. He had that killer shockwave if I remember correctly. Now against G2, he's had a killer shockwave too. And look at this ball, the positioning is just perfect by SK.
Yeah, and it's also just, once again, the team fight composition of SK. If you don't blow up one of the backline targets here, it's going to be very difficult dealing with. Flakked, the fact that he gets caught off guard that ball with Gale Force, with the flash, completely seals the flash, completely seals the fight. Bit of a blunder, but SK, they take that.
They definitely do. It was against Astralis, not against Mad Lions, the shockwave from Sertuss, but he's had 2 in a split. And that's quite a few. Treatz looking for the engage here. /BrokenBlade will skip and slash his way away. Solar Flare is an option, but of course the hallowed mist, because you were outside of range of it, the Solar Flare I don't think would connect, as the spell wouldn't be able to get in, unless of course Treatz was able to get inside that big circle.
Gwen would be immune. It's a good shout out here now down towards the bot side. Jankos haven't actually been spotted on Vision, but he'll be spotted on the Volibear E there just to get the Vision.
Now with SK very much in the driver's seat of this game, you know, 4,000 gold ahead, 2 dragons in their pocket. They've got the Baron for another 2 minutes. The question is, what can they get out of it? Because there's a tier 1 and 3 tier 2s to work their way through, but they haven't really found a way to push G2 back as of yet. They're going to try and do it on this mid lane wave.
Remember, they have really good dive as well with Gilius, so just forcing out G2 away from these turrets, forcing plays where he can get a pick onto Flakked that still doesn't have the cleanse, that still doesn't have the flash, where he's only relying on the dark passage from Targamas is what you're looking for here. So now mid lane priority has been gained. You're moving it up towards the top side. Let one member recall to take care of this split push from BrokenBlade and keep applying pressure. SK though, they're caught a little bit scattered. They're not used to this situation with them applying the pressure with Baron, and G2 is actually making the better movement.
Gonna be 2 towers for 1. It's tier 2 in the bottom lane, a tier 1 in the mid for G2. They come out on top of that trade. SK only able to take 1 turret, didn't take top, although I see a couple of pings on it. I wonder if it will fall to the minion wave that's pushing in. I don't think it was low enough, and it won't. Super Mega Death Rocket stops Flakked's base, but there's not really much on the cards here for SK. Really just changing the tempo a little bit, changing the way the pendulum swings slightly more in their favor for the next couple of seconds, but Flakked still able just to back away and catch that wave in the mid lane.
Yeah, and with mid lane priority, then we're going to move a little bit down towards the bot side. Let's Jenax picks up the outer turret, and you apply still a little bit more pressure. It's not going to matter too much in the grand scheme, but you need to pick the map apart to really find your finishing touches of it, and that's what you're looking for. And right now you can see Treatz, Jezu, they're backing him up as well. They're playing 2 lanes. Cap, he's up towards the top side, but he's going to make a long walk until he reaches that inhibitor turret. So SK, they can still apply this pressure without having to worry about getting cross-mapped.
So in the end, the Baron nets them 3 towers to 2. 1 extra inner tower, that's extra gold for them. 3,000 gold their Baron power play over the last few minutes, and now 5,000 gold their overall advantage. Hextech gates are something we have to watch out for the next minute, because that dragon an option, and it does mean you have to give yourself a little bit more vision behind you, because you can be flanked. And if Jankos gets a flank, if BrokenBlade gets a flank, even if Targamas gets a flank, it becomes very tricky for SK to fight this front to back that they've been fighting so well so far.
It's just very difficult in general, because it seems like BrokenBlade is the only one who's realistically speaking going to be able to wreak havoc in the backline with the Hallowed Mist. Jankos can get kited out. The crucial part is you find Jezu with that flash down. It's a very limited timer. I don't even think they're going to be able to punish it before the Drake spawns. And that's going to make it a very difficult situation. No, they're looking for it.
Gale Force out of the Cataclysm. Jezu refuses to be locked down. Super Mega Death Rocket will come out. It's not going to kill anyone because it goes wide anyway. But that is the Cataclysm Flash burnt, the TP burnt, and SK can burn their way straight through at this Hextech Drake.
But I guarantee you G2 had timed that flash. They knew exactly the timer they were working with. They knew Drake was about to spawn, and they saw Jezu in the mid lane. A brilliant Gale Force is enough though, and Jezu and the rest of SK should be able to pick up a soul point for themselves. And now with Jezu, with flashback off, it's just going to be an even more difficult situation for G2.
And what you want to see from SK here is moving towards that top side of the map now. Yes, all the neutrals gone on the bottom side. You don't need that blue side vision anymore. Go towards the G2 red side. Get some wards in deep because you've got a minute and a half before that Baron comes up. That's what Jankos is trying to do. He's trying to get wards of his own before we see SK come back out onto the map. Jankos will just back away. And you can see Treatz here using his sweeper early means that he can't use it to sweep out the G2 jungle. That's what Jankos is trying to get by pushing it in.
Baron spawns in 1 minute. And this can be a crucial point for G2 because quite often when we take a look at the lower end teams, they're not used to being in a position where they're dictating the game. They're not used to being in a position where they're the one who's setting up the plays. And especially when you're not used to having a Baron setup where the lanes are not always pushed out, you sometimes just flip it. You started without having enough vision, you just try and go for the 50-50, and all of a sudden you lose track of the game. So for SK right now, what we want to see is them just slowly but surely taking control of this situation. Push out the mid lane, push out the top side, get the vision and the intelligence you need of the enemy jungler to start applying pressure of this Baron, because make no mistake, G2 should be the team under pressure, not SK.
And we have seen that from G2. Targamas, a player we highlighted as a shining star for this team so far throughout spring. 0-3-2, a couple of uncharacteristic mistakes from him in the mid game, getting caught out. Caps as well, although he was able to harass Sertuss in lane, now sitting 0-2-1 behind in CS only at 2 items. He does have a needlessly large rod, but it's not going to help him too much right now. Jenax, level 18, highest level in the game. Caps, 2 levels behind Sertuss. Jankos, 2 levels behind Gilius. Even Flakked is behind. The only level where G2 are even is in the supports, and that one really doesn't matter too much. I can promise you that.
It's absolutely absurd. And especially considering the laning phase we had coming out from Caps, where he was in complete control against Sertuss. But now, let's also take a look at the itemization. Jankos, he's gone for a secondary Guardian Angel. He's ready to throw his life away to try and pin down Jezu. That's what they need to look for. Force the flash out of him. Get the pick with Targamas in Fog of War. If you can find a 4 versus 5 situation, that could be beneficial to you. But right now, Jenax, he's applying pressure down the bot side. SK applying pressure down the mid. And G2, they're just kind of waiting around.
And you mentioned the crux of it all there. Jankos has to throw himself in, because who else? Who else can do it for G2? Maybe a good flank, maybe a good hook, but it's Jankos diving into the back line, screaming Damasio and hoping that his team can follow up. Right now, though, SK haven't got the deep vision that they really wanted. They'll go back. You can see no wards for Treatz right now. It means that he can't get any more vision further in. There was a battle for vision supremacy to deny that Fog of War, and G2 won it for the moment with the resets coming out. SK now know the river doesn't have any G2 vision because it's been 3 minutes since G2 stepped in there. They know their jungle doesn't have any G2 vision, and it's only G2 vision in that sort of red buff, that red quadrant for themselves.
Yeah, I also wonder, I think the reason SK is taking it a bit slow in this instance is that they're just waiting for Sertuss to pick up his Rapidon's Death Cap. You can see he's sitting on 2 needlessly large rods right now. And there we go. Rapidon's Death Cap have been finished up. Now you have a huge power spike from Orianna.
Good call, good call. BrokenBlade going in. Of course, can skip and slash back across the wall. Jankos, though, timing not the best. Jenax just trying to kill Caps. Jenax 3 levels up. Goodbye, Caps. Oh, he misses the collateral damage. Good side steps by Caps, but you see Super Mega Death Rocket just going wide as well. Caps able to fancy feet his way out of that, but that's his flash burnt. And Jenax was still full HP when that began.
Yeah, but SK, they're not getting too overconfident. They're not just starting up Baron just because they forced out the mid laner of G2. Caps still has that teleport, something you still has to take into consideration. And if you can keep Baron under control, if you can keep G2 pushed back, well, then you can just immediately move that pressure down towards the Drake when that spawns and not worry about G2 one-shotting the Baron, because pay attention to BrokenBlade's item, to Flakked's item. You leave them alone with that Baron, they'll completely demoralize it.
He will. They'll make it very sad, and then they'll kill it.
Demolish it. Demoralize starts
well,
a different
demoralize it as well. I'd be quite sad if I was getting snipped to pieces by a Gwen. Woo! just takes the wind out of your sails,
It
doesn't
really
it?
does,
You know?
doesn't it? Yeah.
But what SK can do, as you say, is wait for that dragon to spawn. For the moment, Jenax continues to apply pressure in the side lane. Now, the game's slowing down a bit. Does fall a little bit into G2's favor because they now are hitting level 16 on Caps, level 16 on Flakked. Caps has 2 needlessly large rods, almost has a cap. I'm still not sure how on earth those two combine into that, but that's something for Gwen, the sewing mistress, to tell us about at some point, I'm sure. Now G2, though, not the best guns on Flakked for a fight, but they're looking just to continue to deny vision here. Jankos has aggroed the Baron.
Look at this right now. They can just keep the pressure in the mid lane. They can keep the pressure around Baron, and then they let Jenax solo the Drake by himself. Gilius doesn't even need to be around here. They just need to take care of this Drake, get the soul for themselves, and then start worrying about that final piece that is the Baron.
Man, Hextech Soul on a Graves, on a Volibear, on a Jinx. I mean, not on this Volibear because he's not got that much attack speed, but on a Jinx, that's not something to be trifled with. Jezu also has a stopwatch, so does Sertuss, so if they're ever caught out, they have a couple of moments of invulnerability and invincibility. And now we see that reset happening. Infinity Edge now complete on Jezu. That's a 4044 item Jinx. And we know what Jinx can do in this sort of situation. We watched it in Netflix hit TV adaptation.
And just to give you the numbers of 4...
You can't interrupt my joke like that, Guldborg.
Listen,
Come on.
I've how many weeks have I listened
Chad
to
is
Arcane?
bat-chesting all over the place right now.
Is Ten's playing too or what? But the thing is with these 4 Hextech Drakes you have currently is that they give you 24% ability haste and attack speed by these 4 Drakes. Now a Drake in itself doesn't matter all too much, well it does, but it doesn't mean the greatest difference. When you start just stacking up 4, that's just a huge power spike you're suddenly looking at. This Jinx is going to be absolutely shredding. You get the slow, you have the extra attack speed, and you have the damage facilitated by your items.
And what SK have done so well in this game is translate a good early game into a good mid game. They didn't lose the early game, which is something we couldn't say for them probably in all of the last 11 games they played here in Spring. But what they did do was they sacrificed early dragons to get heralds. They sacrificed early pressure to get Jinx some gold. And after those first 2 dragons were taken by G2, G2 really haven't had an opportunity to ever get close to the dragon. Maybe we had 1 or 2 fights around it. In fact, that fight where Jezu picked up the triple kill springs to mind, but since that, it has been all SK's favor. 4,000 gold their lead, but give them a soul on top of that. You're looking more like 6,000-7,000 overall. G2 well and truly on the back foot, now forced back by Treatz, who steps forward, has a sweeper. Will clear out this vision. I will say his vision score is incredible, 117. He doesn't have zombie ward. Usually you only see vision like that with a zombie ward, but Treatz is absolutely commanding this map. SK flipping this one a little bit as Jankos goes in, but they decide to stop the aggro. Solar Flare on the back line.
It's the classic!
It's the classic. Jankos gets it, but here's the follow-up. Jenax stepping forward. Jankos comes out of the GA. Jezu can't get into the fight, and 4 members of G2 get out with Baron somehow.
Medic, what did I say? No one team starts doing.
They flip it at the Baron.
They didn't even push out the lane. You saw the vision control in G2's jungle as well. It's all red. None of this is SK vision control. They got lazy with it. They're like, well, I guess we have the soul, so we just start the Drake. We should win this, right? Like, I see this way too many times, and obviously G2 just finds the good punish. They're trying to reset it here, but Gilius, he's still tanking. Jankos just goes in there. You have the range with the Calibrum, and Jankos, he's able to get it, and he's able, not fully to get out of that, but they still trade it with a 1-for-1 against Treatz.
In the end, it is just so much damage going out from Flakked in the end. With that Calibrum, as you say, was able to take the 1-for-1 with Treatz. Jankos did exactly what he was meant to do, and you can actually see SK thinking about it. They saw the Demacian standard come down, the flag of the flag and drag combination from the Jarvan. They said, well, stop aggroing this. It's 3,000. He can't burst it. But they forgot about the 200 years of Flakked across the wall. G2 now back in this game. They are still staring down a Hextech Soul, but the game gets closer and closer as that gold lead shrinks and shrinks, and right now, 2,000 gold ain't worth a damn. Everyone's sitting basically at full build.
And this game is obviously not over because once again, Soul is only temporary. The Soul, or Baron is temporary, Soul is forever. But the thing is, this might benefit SK a little bit because now that the pressure is no longer on them to make a move, you will have G2 running into you. And that's what you want as an Orianna. That's what you want as a Leona and Jinx, because you want to kite back. And yes, they step forward, but Gwen, she's immune.
She is. Treatz though, Solar Flare off on a relatively short cooldown with those Hextech Drakes stacking up, as you say, 24% ability haste, was it, Guldborg?
Yes.
For 4 Drakes. That means that Solar Flare is already about halfway off its cooldown, so should be back up in about 30 seconds time. However, G2 do now have the ability to push out these lanes. You can see BrokenBlade at 4 items, has an elixir for the next fight. Jankos is GA about halfway off its cooldown. Caps going towards a Void Staff with that Lightning Jewel. He'll almost be at 4 items as well. And you have an Aphelios at 4 items, 400 CS at 37 minutes. He's pretty darn strong if he's left alone in a team fight.
Now, all I'm wondering right now, if this is this just gonna come down to an Elder flip again?
Yep.
This is the way G2 get back into this, is Jankos stealing away the Elder and picking up the fight. Now, granted, we have just seen a game where Elder was taken, and that flipped the switch as well for Vitality in that instance as well against BDS, so a little bit of a pattern unfolding in front of us today.
And it'd be a big loss for SK as well. A win here would have really rocketed them up the standings. You know, getting to 4 and 8, then slowly working your way towards that 9-win threshold. Sometimes you see teams get through on 7 or 8 wins, but 9 wins pretty much guarantees you a spot in the LEC playoffs. In fact, only Schalke in 2018 spring, I want to say, maybe 2019 spring, didn't make it at the 9-9 scoreline, and now they're not even in the league. So that kind of shows what before was teams that don't make it.
They're going to fall out of the league now.
I'm saying,
What's the kind of pattern you're
if
going
SK
for here?
get to 9-9 and don't make it into playoffs, who knows?
That's where we start getting a little bit worried about them then.
Yeah.
Okay, copy, great, thank you, Medic. Now, taking stock at items then, Caps is recalling now. I wonder if he's going to be able to pick up his Void Staff, because that would be crucial as well before this fight. Still waiting, he's TPing, and no, he's still only sitting on the Blightel Duo. Granted, it does give you some ability penetrate, or magic penetration rather.
I think getting the stopwatch for the next fight is more important for Caps than trying to round out that full Void Staff. There is some magic resist on the enemy team. Lockett, of course, helping. Mercury Treads pretty much across the board. Only the AD carry and Gilius not getting it, but Elder actually started up immediately here. Jankos looking for the steal. Treatz keeping him at arm's length. BrokenBlade looking to try and get into the base, and Jankos is down. Elder secured. BrokenBlade still pushes in. Can G2 stop them? Resurrect coming out as Flakked will fall, but he's got a GA, and BrokenBlade's on the Nexus Towers. G2 pushing in the TP. The channel. He will just make it. Jenax goes, but the blast cone, as you say, was an option to stop that teleport. It counts as CC, and Caps just forgot about it, it seems, in the moment. He will forget about surviving as well as Treatz takes away, but doesn't quite fall. SK live to fight another day. BrokenBlade on the chase. Targamas forced away. BrokenBlade and Targamas will take the kill. Jezu trying to get away from this one. The Elder's going to do a lot of work, and Gilius is coming in as well. Targamas down once. Get excited, SK. Get excited, Jezu. Get excited, LEC. Because SK are looking for their 4th win of spring.
And just like that, they should be able to push down the mid lane. Minion wave is still a while to come. 20 seconds on Flakked. Jankos, he's up and alive, but essentially does nothing as he tech a Hex
Trying to
Tech
catch the
right.
wave. He's trying to catch the wave. Hextech Gaming. Hextech gating here from Jankos, but he's forced away. GA back for him. 7 on Flakked.
Exactly. Low death timers are still here. 14 on Targamas. So SK, I don't even know if they can go for it yet. They might still look for it.
They can. Stormbringer about to come off cooldown for Gilius. Flakked has flash, has cleanse, but he's against an Elder. Collateral damage coming out. Jankos going forward. Flakked, Sertuss, shockwave. Flakked flashes, but the Elder still finds its mark. You can't flash away from the Dragon Laser. As SK look for the win, they clean it up. G2 demolished. SK secure the win.
Another upset comes through from our bottom tier teams. Astralis started out against Fnatic. Now SK against G2, and it just won't stop. SK finds a crucial win in the race for playoffs.
Huge win for them. Gets them up to 4 and 8. Of course, G2 now join Fnatic at 8 and 4. Our chasing pack doing a little bit less chasing and a bit more flagging behind Rogue, but we have yet to see Rogue play today. They're up against Mad Lions next. For the moment, though, credit to SK, a little falter around that Baron, but the rest of that game was very clean.
But this is fine, because the issues of SK initially coming into today's games was we don't know how to win laning phase. We don't know how to find the win conditions in the early game. This time around, they did it. Gilius, he stepped up for once. He helped Jezu get ahead. Jezu was not making mistakes in the laning phase. And no, the macro in the mid to late game was not clean, but let's be honest, they don't have a lot of experience being ahead in the mid to late game. So that's issues you can start looking forward to now instead.
You definitely can. Your key player of the game votes include both Gilius and Jezu alongside Sertuss. At LEC on Twitter is where you can vote. All of them have a very good saying in why they could win that, but we'll see who does after the break. Now, we'll also hear from Rogue's Malrang, and the victorious Treatz will join us at the Analyst desk to preview the last game of the day, Mad Lions versus Rogue. almost falls. Wind becomes lightning is enough. Mauang still surviving. Triumph. The cards heals him up. The cards coming out. The gold will be locked in, but not in time. Destiny out.
He's got away. The auto attack got cancelled because he ulted away. But here comes the Jinx rocket.
We have been doing really well in scrims and it's showing on stage as well. So the most important thing is to be in really good shape for playoffs. You can go 18-0, but it doesn't matter at all like when players comes around.
Flash in with the chain of corruption. It's really trying to hard commit to this one. And Adam goes straight in onto Unforgiven, but he's being kited back out. Unforgiven will fall eventually, but they get the LeBlanc, they get the Camille, and now it's a 4v3 in favor of Mad Lions. They reset it off, and it was just too...
Reflecting on how we're doing in general, I think I should probably take a little bit of responsibility for some of the ups and downs we've had. There are some really clear positives that we have. I think we've had really good early games, and that's something that we worked on a lot.